Well, welcome
That is
everybody to Tech Breakfast. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023, first Tech Breakfast of the new year. I'm so excited to see everybody here. Today, Barry is in Nashville
on the iPhone.
on the iPhone.
The
Because
iPhone
you want
in
to tell them a little bit
Portugal.
about what you're covering, Barry?
Well, I'm here. Well, tomorrow is I do a day at Blackbird for Mark Rubel, and it's every year, usually around a NAM show, but there's no summer NAM this time. I come there and talk about my project studio design class I used to teach. So I do like 2-3 hours for his class and then lunch. Saturday and Sunday is what they're calling the Meta Alliance, and that's a like a mixing with the masters kind of event with several different famous engineer producers, and they'll be there and each taking on. I don't have the but talk about it because I don't know any too much, but I'll be covering that for Mix, so that's going to be fun. That's Saturday and Sunday. And then other than that, goof it off.
Nice. Is it, how cold is it down there?
Nashville was last night was 20s. Well, Denver was in the 20s. I had to lay over there for an hour. I don't recommend that process, by the way. If you've ever been to Denver Airport. And then Nashville, I got down to about 25 last night.
Yeah.
I just booked a flight through Denver. Why didn't you like it, Perry?
Well, you have to walk. I said I'm going to carry on this time. I'm not going to check a bag, and it's a huge airport. And so when I got off the plane from Berkeley, and they're stopping, you have to walk down to catch a train to get to the next flight. So you just have enough time to do that. So first time I've ever done a not actual
Direct.
not had a layover like that, hour and a
I
half.
travel a lot in that airport. It's not bad during the summer, but during the winter, it's a pain that took us.
Yeah, all snow. Denver, of course, is all white snow, and it's a huge airport. I mean, it takes the plane 20 minutes to taxi after it touches down, 20 minutes to get to at least it did on mine, to get to the where you get out. And then the plane, a brand new, that plane was kind of older. And then the plane coming to Nashville was a newer plane, and they were stuck at the terminal. They had a power outage inside the plane. What emergency lights went on, they couldn't connect the external power. So we were stuck on the plane for a half hour with no lights. What are you going to do?
Welcome to Colorado. Welcome to Denver.
That was Nashville when that happened. But I noticed on the flight, the in-flight entertainment system it restarted. The screens all went black, and then it restarted. It said, what's that? Galaxy restart. Apparently they're running some kind of a smartphone app. Anyway, whatever.
The thing in my car keeps doing that. Apple, whatever, the computer in the Honda. CarPlay.
Well, Barry and I have been kicking around what to talk about today. We've got some manufacturers who are coming in February. But one of the things that we've been discussing is, where are we now in this industry? What are we doing? And, what does everyone feel like at the beginning of this year, 2023? Do you think things have gotten worse? Do you think things have gotten better? Where are you? I had some friends I was talking to over the weekend, and they were like, dude, I'm done. I'm getting out. It's 2023 and I'm done with the music industry.
Wow.
It's just a new industry left.
What does he do? That's kind of extreme.
He was doing mixing, and now he's going to go and try and do a job in audio post.
Okay.
He's just not, he's like, I'm going to use my mixing skills, but I'm going to get paid on an hourly basis. And I'm tired, he's gonna join what is the IATSE.
So he's not out,
I'm done.
he's just shifting lanes.
Yeah.
He's not going to work at like a McDonald's or something.
Seems
that's
kind of
it,
like an
yeah.
adult move, doesn't it?
It's a lateral move, would you say?
It's definitely a lateral move, but that's why, we were kind of talking about, what you all, the collective group, what are you all thinking of? I mean, what does everyone feel like we're going, where we're heading? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, Tony and everyone, can I just introduce a little bit?
Jump in.
So I haven't been joining for a long time. I think I went to one of the original, in-person breakfasts, but I want to thank Tony for keeping me on the list. And I just thought this might be a proper time to jump in. I'm a music editor with a composing background, and just a little introduction. I know Les and Barry taught at MI for many years, but as a music editor coming out of composition, so I'm not a mixer, but still, of course, involved with post-production in music. And also just a little bit of current information, more current. I'm ACI Pro Tools instructor and taught many years starting at Video Symphony, MI. I still teach at UCLA Extension, of course. And I just wrote my second book. My first one is music editing for film and television. It's Focal Press Routledge. And a new one came out in August, which is the music of film, which is collaborations and conversations. So it's an interview-based book specifically around music and movies, interviewing composers, music editors, picture editors, and music supervisors. So you might, I could send a link if you guys are interested in checking it out, but that's kind of a little update. And I just want to thank you, Tony, and everyone for including me. I'm just really interested in kind of course, keeping in touch with things and what's going on, just as you're suggesting. So thank you.
Yeah, that's why we're kind of doing it today. We're kind of doing this thing today is so that we can kind of see what everybody's at. That's all. So I know Tony's been teaching. Who else is doing anything? Tony?
Well, the teaching thing is interesting because I'm teaching to film and television students. I'm not even teaching to audio engineering kids. So for me, I'm teaching critical listening. I'm not teaching the mechanics of being a recording engineer. That's not, that's been critical for me because when the film and television department hired me, they said, what we need to do is we need to teach your skills to these students. They don't have to be, world-class engineers. We need them to have a working background of what they're getting into. So
That's great. That's really great. That's
really smart. Directors, are directors included?
well, many of them. I mean, there's 25 students in the program.
Where are you teaching?
Last quarter, I taught to 10 students, which seems not that much.
But it's a lot for the subject matter. It's a lot.
When you're trying to do something, everybody's trying to get some time in on the computer. It's just, it's like, okay, you show me this, open this up, do this, And so this quarter, I'm teaching film and editing for film and TV.
where is this,
That's what
Tony?
we're
Where you at?
talking
I forget where you teaching.
La Sierra University, part of Loma Linda University. And it's great and I love it. But the thing is you're teaching to a new set of kids who, this is all passive information, if I could use it in that way. They're not actively going out to be engineers. But the
Right.
school feels it's very important for them to have a working knowledge of engineering.
I wonder if the manufacturers have anything to do with that.
No, well, then if they did, then they would have their product stuck in there. You know that.
A lot of places do. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Loma Linda's program, but I know a lot of the other facilities do. And it's sort of like, exactly the point. Like, why are you training kids how to run an SSL? They're never going to touch an SSL with rare exception. I mean, I went to a recording school. I went to MI back in the mid 90s when I first got out of it, there was a 6-month program for recording that had just begun. They just slapped an SSL in. But I was training to go work in rooms that had every room in town had a Neva or an SSL then. I wound up going into mastering, so none of that knowledge, none of that practical, how does this specific button on this specific console work transferred over. But it gave me a base of knowledge in terms of just general audio principles where I knew how to ask the right questions once I got into a studio. But they were training us for what we were going to go do. And that's one thing I never understood. I'm not sure. I'd like to learn.
Well, MI is by Musicians Institute by nature is a trade school. So you go there to learn a trade.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why they're teaching you a particular piece of gear or setup. I think what Tony is talking about is things like critical listening, musicality,
Yeah.
kind of what we think of as broad-based, broad term. I teach acoustics and studio. I call it project studio design, and it's basically about how to have your own setup at home. And there's an awful lot of money wasted. I kind of get right to the point about all of that stuff, and that is it. You don't need the world's best speakers. You don't need this kind of microphone. You don't need this kind of compressor. I go more on the basic level, not even basic. It's like, what are you looking for in a room? What do the speakers need to do, and all that stuff. It's where I take it. So you don't need to have.
I've seen many of your whiteboards. They're like works of art.
Oh, thanks.
Literally.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Barry's whiteboards,
Oh, man.
Stefan is right. They are works of art.
I guess I should post them, huh? At my
Oh my
website. I
God.
got every
Dude,
freaking thing else.
I walked into his room at MI and I'm just looking, like, who the f did this? Barry? Like, I do that before every class. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's nuts.
Like the scene in When the Day the Earth Stood Still, where the guy's
It's
got
like a diagram, and yours is like this, and this connects to this. I'm like, oh my God, Barry, you're just a genius.
Well, it was kind of like they loved it because they could come in there and take a picture of it, and they don't have to try to recreate that, which would be ridiculous. It takes me 2 hours to draw those things, with straight
Put those
lines.
things in a book, Barry. No lie.
I got them all. I got them all.
You
I'm
can
going to
put
use
them
a
in
couple of them tomorrow, actually.
Hey, Tony, you said part of the problems in your class teaching was people finding time on the computer. Doesn't everybody have their own, or are there like 2 people on each computer, or is everybody sharing one? Or
No, because these are film and television students. So they have their own computer, but they don't have Pro Tools in their computer. They have Adobe Premiere, they have DaVinci, they have every film tool you can think of. But their focus is video and film production and not necessarily audio production. So their whole concept of like what they need to learn is, when we talk about critical listening, that's a really cool thing. That's one of those classes that has like maybe 10 or 15 students in it, because those kids are sitting there going, I hear a difference, but I don't know what it is I'm hearing. So it's really interesting to see them as film students trying to learn what is it I'm listening to. I don't understand what I'm listening to. And that's been great for me, because I don't have to teach the mechanics of engineering. I just have to, I'm teaching them how to be better listeners. So it's great. But that's me and where I'm at. But that's why I'm wanting to find out where you guys are. I decided that I would start teaching. This will be the 3rd year I've been teaching, and it's been great and I love it. But I don't know if I could see myself teaching full-time. I mean, Barry was teaching full-time for a while.
No, well, never full-time. I was teaching 1 day a week or 2 days a week.
I'm only teaching 1 day a week.
Can I just
Yeah.
put it?
There's very little full-time in these fields. These universities or trade schools want a one-off class or not. I was just looking at a class down in San Diego. They wanted a composer tech person. But I've also found that taking off on Tony on your class idea and what you're presenting, I found that particularly at the UCLA class I teach, which is their title for it is, it's in their composition program, their composition certificate program as a core course. And it's called editing, recording, and mixing. And so we're trying to squeeze in 11 weeks these 3 elements. And
Well, they have to do
each one of them-
overview.
yeah, each
overview.
one of them could be a course in itself, of course. And
Sure.
But so again, I put together kind of a course that really takes you through. If you were these are young composers, they're not filmmakers necessarily, but takes them through the beginning of, you know, spotting and just kind of the whole process of what temp scores and what they're going to be facing as they exit school and hopefully enter that world, right? And so I think I put together something really good that kind of takes them through the process. But the mixing element and recording is, again, kind of on what you guys are talking about is, or Barry particularly, is pretty basic. And I think the reason for that, if you get too deep, then you start losing them, you know, because they're sitting in their living room on a laptop recording and scoring. And I mean, these things are so, as we all know, are very efficient, and you can do so much without much gear, you know. And so, but the important thing is I think, to give them all of ours traditional background, where we come from, both analog, and digital, and the whole process and the workflow as much as we can, because arming them with that, they then go out in the work field, and they may not be mixers or recordists, but they'll know what goes on behind the scenes. They'll know what it's about. They'll know a little bit about the language of what we all do. But they don't have to, as you were saying, they don't have
That's
learn
what
it.
they really need. They need a vocabulary to know, you know, you may not be able to have, you know, every word in someone else's language, but you have a vocabulary that can kind of get you there. El Banya. There's certain things I need to know, be able to navigate through this world. And as students who are dealing with audio, and I've told them, you know, I tell them, all my students for like the last 3 years, you know, audio is the bastard child of your industry. That's the last thing they think about. They don't care about it. They don't worry about it. It's just like, oh, we'll dub it in later. It's like, you know, it's all about the image. And so getting them to have an appreciation for recording great audio is been a game changer for a lot of them. You know, they are very focused on, like, we need to get it right. We need to do this right. And it's not just about a visual medium for them. And that makes me feel like I've at least accomplished something with the kids, you know. But
You can only hope to really develop an interest in a particular area, let's say, of the whole thing. And if they seem to perk up on the audio part, or they perk up on the video editing, at least you've established, you know, a direction maybe they might want to look into deeper. Les has something to say. Over.
Had to find my button. Yeah, I was just going to add on the teaching thing. I have been teaching part-time as well. I taught a dozen years at UCLA Extension, where Steve is at, and then more recently I've been teaching maybe 6 years at Los Angeles College of Music in Pasadena, which is kind of on the same plane as MI. And I've been teaching basic audio techniques to non-majors. They've got a lot of production people who learn how to work drum loops and stuff. But these are all, like, half of them are drum students, because the whole school is halfway run by a fantastic studio drummer named Ralph Humphreys. And half of them are like singer-songwriter girls who don't do anything except, you know, sing.
That's cool.
So that's cool. And they're all nice kids, and they have different areas of expertise. But I'm going with pretty basic thing. I'm like, okay, what's the difference between a cardioid microphone and a figure-8 microphone, and what does a response curve mean, and why do acoustics matter?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is something I go with my classes. I try to teach from a definition standpoint, like you say. So I have a whole list of definitions that they can download, and I go with a checklist. Like, okay.
Exactly. And one more quick note, with regard to the gentleman who was talking about whether or not an SSL matters. I teach in a room with an SSL, and these kids will never sit down in front of an SSL probably, but here's what's cool about an SSL. you can see everything. If you're in Pro Tools, there's a million hidden little routing menus and stuff, and the idea of where things route to make an aux, to make a, you know, all the stuff that happens under the hood, under the secret passageways in a DAW, you can see it out in plain sight in an SSL. So the knobs never go away. The on-off switches are really visible. So I kind of walk them through that, and then I show them how does this compare to Pro Tools, and how does it compare to Logic, and you know, what does it really mean? So it's got a reason, even if you'll never be a studio engineer.
Yeah, real buttons.
Yeah, at
Hey,
least,
Mark.
at least in my
I
experience.
know Mark
I
had
feel
something to
I feel
say.
compelled to speak up now about the SSL comment because
Oh, all
as a
right.
representative of SSL,
All right.
mainly just to say the term SSL doesn't just mean a large format console anymore. There are SSLs everywhere now. Every possible facet you can think of the audio industry, there are SSLs there. Now we actually have a product which is $150, a hardware product which is $150. So and all the way up to, you know, $750,000, but you can buy an SSL hardware product for $150. So yeah, you will see them everywhere, and it's not just traditional recording studios. We are doing an install at NASA this week, for instance. So there will be an SSL at NASA for the first time.
Wow.
And every kind of broadcast facility, and that's in Houston, the main campus. Any kind of facility that needs audio, you might see an SSL there, whether it's broadcast, post-production, home users. You know, there's been a remarkable uptake of home users over especially the past 2 years with SSL products. So yeah, you will see them everywhere. And there is a kind of a company methodology, which is to make high quality products whatever the market. So you'll see them everywhere. So I think some of the techniques you'll see in the larger products, you're also going to see in $150 products as well. So yeah,
But to your point, Phil, those kids have an understanding. A lot of the ones who have majors, they have an understanding of what a SSL plugin is. And
exactly.
you try and convince them, it's like, this came from a console. They're like, what? Because in their generation, that's all they've ever known. There's just an SSL plugin. And they're like, well, just put an SSL on it. And you're like, okay, I can do that. But do you know where this came from? Do you have an understanding of what, you know, this?
Not only that, but why
Yeah.
do you want an SSL plugin? What does that give you to the sound that you think the sound needs?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, you know, we as a representative of the company, we come from a place of, obviously everybody knows us for the big stuff, but ultimately as a business these days, you can't solely focus your business on selling $500,000 products, because you don't, I would say you don't sell as
Not
many,
anymore.
but
Not anymore, huh?
yeah, that's still, well, that's not true. There's very much an analog resurgence from my viewpoint anyway, the last couple of years. So, but yeah, people are being introduced to SSLs for the first time now, and really, it's really catching on.
And you have a bunch of 20 somethings. I mean, these kids start, you know, 18 to 22-year-old kids. And it is amazing to me, you know, because they live in a world of LUTs where, you know, there's a plugin for this and a plugin for that and so they are very adaptive to, like, well, that's just a plugin I need to learn.
Yeah.
So
the plugins,
cool.
I mean, yeah, as a company as well, I made a list of the plugins, and the reason I made a list was because somebody said, well, what's in the suite? And there's something like 23 plugins now that SSL, separate plugins that SSL makes. So it's not just EQ and bus compressor. There's 21 other things other than an EQ and bus compressor.
That's only your brand name, right? There's SSL plugins on Waves. There's SSL plugins.
Well, they're copies.
Yeah, they're copies.
There's quote unquote licensed stuff, which you know, the company gets a little bit of money from, but ultimately, yeah, the real in-house plugins, there's 23 variants of that, plus Waves, plus Plugin Alliance, plus UAD, plus whoever. But yeah, 23 factory delivered plugins, and there's more. I just got a notification. There's another one coming out at the end of February. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff. Every 2 months, you'll see a new plugin from SSL for probably the next year or so. So
They usually
that suite will
they
be-
usually send it to me, by the way. The B
Yes.
channel is cool. I gotta say, love it.
So
So
yeah, it's one of those things. SSL is trying to position itself as kind of your first thought for high quality products, whether it's large or small, really. And that it seems to be, you know, that message seems to be very well received by people who've never heard of SSL before. So you know,
Well, there's definitely a generation of kids who they don't make the correlation and the jump between
Yeah.
what this was and what, you know, a plugin is, but they understand the plugins and they understand, you know, they're just a different breed of kids, you know, they understand plugins. Just throw a plugin on them and let's go ahead. But they have no idea they came from a console. You know, these kids are
And
like,
they, you know, for
Okay.
a lot of people, they don't need to. I mean, the hardware product, the mic essentially that we make is $150. You know, stuff like that, you don't actually really need to understand why it sounds good. You just need to understand that you plug it in and actually it's got presets that you don't even need to think about. So, you know, that's for a lot of people as well, is making audio really easy, using essentially complicated concepts which require a high level of knowledge, and actually making it easy enough that people can just plug it in, click a few buttons, and away you go. So yeah, the company's really tried to work hard on that. And plus, as Les was saying, there's also consoles like the one he's got at the college there. I mean, that's a $50,000 large format SSL. So, you know, there's a lot of those.
It's
You will
kind
see
of one of their
everywhere.
middle-sized models in a Studio
Yeah,
B.
it's called that one's called Origin, and it you know, it's $50,000 32 fader console. So there are literally well over 100 of those already in the US, and it's only been out a couple of years. So you'll see those everywhere. You know, if anybody has an interest in, if any of the graduates have an interest in going to any size studio now, you might see a big SSL there. So
hey, are they
it's
gonna
kind of
drop the
different.
price? They're gonna drop the price like Elon Musk did with a Tesla?
No, they increased it. It went up to 60, and then it went down to 55 before the end of the year, and it's back up to 60 now. So, you know, it's not going to drop. There's nowhere to go with that.
I
price point.
couldn't help myself but to bring that to kind of the parallel, because they're about the same amount of money roughly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, Barry.
definitely.
Mr.
Yeah,
Solid is going to be on Twitter all the time.
you know
yeah,
when I to get to Burbank Airport coming here, the driver, I had 5 guys with Teslas ready to pick me up.
wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I've done the Uber thing several times lately, and Teslas seem to be the popular ride because no gas required, you know.
Those are expensive car. Anyway, they dropped the price.
Yeah,
The high end, the most expensive models are the ones they drop the price on.
Yeah, but you can also get them used. They depreciate pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw a comment in about teaching and learning and all that. Recently, and first of all, and what are we doing now? It's like, well, my entire life, I've just been an audio engineer that started out in the music business, and stayed in the music business most of my life, but still an audio engineer. You know, electrons move the same way, microphones work the same way. So I've always done a lot of different things like live sound and installations and clubs and theaters and stuff like that. I worked for Microsoft for about 5 years, doing audio for interactive games or interactive toys kind of thing. So I'm always open to any kind of audio work. But recently I took a job, or I was tasked with this job of mixing a song that was recorded in Pro Tools a long time ago. And there's like 5 or 6 songs to complete an album. And the reason being is it was recorded by an artist who wasn't a very good singer, but then the manager, record company guy, managed to hook up with one of these guys that did well on one of these TV shows. I don't even know his name, The Voice or America's Got Talent or something. So anyways, they're revisiting this thing, but it was recorded in Cubase. So obviously it's like, well, consolidate the tracks, send them to me, and we'll take it from there. You think that would be easy. So it wasn't, but it wasn't, because they screwed it up every step of the way. Not because they're stupid, just because they're inexperienced, and engineers from different states really don't speak the same language we do, and don't understand Pro Tools terminology, and I don't understand Cubase terminology. So I decided to download a free trial of Cubase and try to do it myself. Just send me the session and I'll do all this myself. Easier said than done. So I open up Cubase, and the gazintas and gozautas are easy enough, and pulling up the fader and making the sound come out your outputs, that's all easy enough. And finding the mixer window where you can turn the fader up and down was easy enough. But that's where the similarities end between Cubase and Pro Tools. So I figured, well, how am I going to learn this? So I went to the Steinberg site and tried to find some tutorials and got nowhere. They had some tutorials, but they assumed that you already know how the program works. So it wasn't very helpful. I went to the manual, which is the worst manual ever written, because I guess somewhere it's translated from German into English, and a lot's lost in the translation. So I started fumbling around Google and searching for things, and I'm finding all the videos on YouTube like we all do. And 90% of them were worthless. But then I finally stumbled on a program where the guy is going 5 free lessons on YouTube of Cubase. And this guy started from, okay, you want to record something? Well, no, first lesson was assigning all your in outs and explaining how that worked. Then it was, this is how you record something. This is how you play back something, and et cetera, et cetera. So after 5 lessons, the guy goes, well, that's the end of the lessons. If you want to buy it, you can buy all 25 lessons for, it was cheap. It was like 20 or 30 bucks. So I did that. So the point I'm trying to make here is that is an avenue for teaching, is creating your own YouTube video. I shouldn't say YouTube, but your own online lesson plan somehow. Now, a lot of it, that's also easier said than done, because a bad video is horrible to watch and you just turn it off. But I'm just letting you know that I found one that this old man engineer that's been looked at every console his whole life and been on Pro Tools for 30 years, got stumped on Cubase and found some guy to teach me it for $24, and it works. So talk amongst yourselves.
But that's the thing, and that's why I'm kind of wondering where everyone is headed to in 2023 at the beginning of the year. Still in January, are we thinking, dare I say it, that the industry has shifted forever? Is it one of those things that we feel that it's never coming back? Do we feel, what do you all feel about this industry that we love so much, and that most of us are still, spending time getting, doing what we do? Do we feel like it's on its deathbed? And do we walk away? I'd love to hear what you all think.
Well, I think that if I remember correctly, even when, again, 5, 8 years ago, when I was at MI and of course, amongst engineers, for a while, if I'm correct, for the engineering and mixing live music and in-studio bands, am I correct in assuming that has been kind of declining for a long time? If I'm correct, I don't know, maybe nods. But my guess, to go off your question, it sounds like a lot of us there's a lot of diversification into teaching. One for myself, I still music edit, but also teaching and writing and lecturing and all that. And I think a lot of us have diversified into that area. And I've been hearing a lot from just other colleagues. There was a mixer that I talked with who said, hey, I was thinking of doing some music editing, not at not at your level, but maybe partnering and getting gigs and kind of diversifying. He's got a young family, and thinking about, that's just one thing I heard lately, which is not a bad thing. And I think someone else on this thread was talking about, going into, Paula, you were saying earlier that someone was going into post instead of mixing music or something like that. So I think there's a lot of diversification going on. I feel, but I also don't think that's a bad thing, because again, we're at this, multiple people have a base level of knowledge that can translate into these other areas, post-production teaching and all these other areas of sound and technology and everything. So that's, I don't know, just a perspective on it. I'm not sure what everyone else thinks.
Well, I was fortunate enough that I'm 29 years now, I'm still doing the same thing I started out doing. And I consider myself very fortunate. I know it's rare, but one of the ways that I was able to do that is by kind of getting out of the music business. I still master records, but most of what I do is film and TV music. And that puts me on film and TV budgets, which have been pretty good and consistent. That content is continuing to be consumed. And it gives me a perspective on the difference between the streaming thing versus for music only versus, video entertainment. The streaming, all the revenues being made in streaming, that's all getting hoovered up by the labels and by the tech companies. It's not getting to the artists. So the only way they can make money is by selling physical product, which in this day and age is vinyl. And by touring, relentlessly touring, nonstop, never ending, constant, mind-numbing touring. And that's not sustainable. So it's like, for the music business to succeed, they kind of need to borrow more of, I view it, they need to borrow more of the film and TV thing and try to package their content in a more cohesive way so that the creators are remunerated up front, as opposed to trying to drain drips out of the teat, years down the line, like the false long tail. Like I was just reading a couple of weeks ago an article, they were talking about the sort of the myth of the long tail, where you're going to create all this content and then it will go up online and then it'll sustain you in a conceivable way, in a real way, meaningful way for a long time. But what they're finding is that the costs to maintain and license all that content in perpetuity is so great that they're shedding content. That's why every month new stuff gets pulled off Netflix, because it no longer pays for them to have it up there. And all of this sort of generational content is being almost sort of lost to the cost cutting and to the streamlining. And what happens when that happens with music is, right now, this music's an open door. They'll let anybody release anything to any service. But at some point that's gonna stop. And then an entire segment of the industry gets gutted out. Like the music industry we've been upheavaled already, but it's set for more. I don't know how constructive that comment is, but like, well, I kind of ran around the bush there, I guess. But it's like there's a lot of changes coming. I kind of view them sort of right from the perimeter of the music industry.
So where do you think it's going to go? Where do you think it's going to go? That's what I'm asking, because so many people feel like there's a bit of doom and gloom that is right around the corner. And most of us have experienced a bit of doom and gloom over the last couple of years with, budgets getting cut and all that kind of stuff. But there's no money. We all know there's no money left in streaming. You can't make a living selling records or selling music. But what does that mean for us as people who create that content? What does that mean for us in 2023?
On that same note, I,
Bless you.
yeah, bless you, Donna.
Oh, thank you.
I was fortunate enough to see Jeff Beck at the Orpheum Theater in November. And of course, he passed away, hasn't been that long, a week or so ago. Anyways, after he passed, I figured, I don't have all the Jeff Beck records I should have had. So I should go up on Amazon and get a couple of the classics, just so I can have them in perpetuity. Guess what? Nothing was available. So I thought, well, gosh, everybody ran and bought all the Jeff Beck CDs the day after he passed. And I was wrong, because I started asking a few other friends. You can't find Joni Mitchell. You can't find, name your favorite artist. You can still find the Beatles because they have a network in place that stuff will always be available, and they're making a shit ton of money. But the record companies have stopped manufacturing CDs and vinyl. So the only Jeff Beck music I could find was just downloading from their streaming service, or buy it on their Amazon Music Plus or whatever it is. Anyways, it was buying compressed files. High fidelity files weren't available. And then just this morning, when I was checking my email, Amazon, who keeps track of every time I go to their page, noticed I was looking for Jeff Beck and found an import for me somewhere in Japan or something, which they wanted $30 for the CD. But it's hard to buy music if it's not available.
Let me jump in here, Mark. What about used record stores? Do you still have those, or they're gone?
Well, I think there's some online, and a few people have recommended them to me.
Mark, go to HD Tracks. They have Jeff Beck in high def there.
Okay, well, thanks for that. But I was really hoping for CD or something physical I could hold in my hand. I'm
Go to
old school
Amoeba.
that way.
Amoeba will probably have it if anybody has it in town. Which is really weird because the last time I was at Amoeba was, I think we were talking about this a couple tech breakfasts ago. It was packed. I mean, there were, they had a line waiting outside of people who wanted to go in and buy vinyl and CDs.
It's become a tourist destination.
Yeah.
It's marketed as such. All the hotels, all the brochures, and all the pamphlets and things.
I'll check that out. Ivana, what was the site you said? HD Tracks is the name of it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just typed in Jeff Beck and there's 2496 files of every album.
Oh, that's cool.
Does
It's
it
there.
give credit on who
I
mastered that?
for one don't even have a CD player anymore. I don't know what y'all are talking about compact disc. That's like so 1998.
1980.
My Mac Pro will still play the dang thing, and I can
Most of my clothes were made before 1998.
Yeah. I mean, vinyl records, of course. Also a good resource is Chad Kassem. I visited his pressing plant in Kansas, driving across the country this past year, and check him out. That's what's the name of his company? AcousticSounds.com. Go check him out. They've got tons of he's the best pressing plant. He bought all of Doug Sax's mastering gear. He's got some fantastic modern record presses with modern quality control and so on. The packaging is, really beautiful, thick cardboard, blah, blah, liner notes.
Now there's someone with the love.
Yeah,
right there.
that guy is doing good shit. So go support Chad.
Now, Ivana, how does he get artists and products licensed to him to manufacture?
I don't know the nitty gritty of all that.
In other words, he doesn't have everything on earth. He has whatever they've asked him to make, right?
No, he was constantly in touch with all these major labels, and he was pressing Steely Dan and Jimi Hendrix when I was there.
All the labels have licensing departments. Anybody
Yeah.
can ask them for permission and the cost to put out any release you want. They can
Probably
say,
has to do with projected sales too,
I mean, that's how
Oh, no.
MoFi exists and all these specialty labels. I used to do work for one called Audio Fidelity, same thing.
But yeah, AcousticSounds.com. They're really beautiful product that they're putting out, and I'm sure he's got some Jeff Becks somewhere.
Yeah, you want to get Jeff Beck, like Beckola, or what's the one? Beckola is good, and blow by blow.
Yeah,
Truth is really good.
Yeah, the first Jeff Beck group album that has I'm Going Down on it. That was a little rocky, but also a classic.
In the overall scheme.
And ironically, one last thing about Jeff Beck. Fortunately, the man has 1 million feet of video available of concert footage everywhere he's gone. So you can go on the computer and just look at it day after day after day and always stumble on something new and wonderful with some rendition of some obscure song that was a classic 50 years ago that'll blow your mind. So enough about Jeff Beck.
Hey, I want to jump in real quick. Sorry, guys, that I'm lurking. Unlike so many of you, I'm still in bed. So I don't have my video on, but I want to tell you a really funny Jeff Beck story real quick. So my wife went to see I think it was called the Jeff Beck Group when they released Truth back in whenever the hell that was, like 68 or 69 or something like that. And when my wife, when I met my wife, she was like, yeah, I saw Jeff Beck, but I spent the whole night thinking that Rod Stewart, the singer, was Jeff Beck. So I had Rod Stewart come into the studio, I don't know, 20 years ago. And I told him the story. And he said, well, I told him I still have the album. I still got the vinyl. He said, but bring it down, mate, and I'll sign it for you. So he, I've got it around here somewhere. But in any event, he signed it and he said to Carla, my wife's name, thanks for coming to see us in Cleveland, Ohio. Your mate, Jeff Beck. And then he crossed out Jeff Beck and said Rod Stewart. That was really cute.
Yeah, they had their differences.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Pretty cool.
I read a Paul McCartney tribute to Jeff Beck, and he said, a wonderful musician with a fierce sense of humor.
Okay, so
I'd love to hear other.
love to hear
people
more,
are-
but love to hear more. But back to our topic. The thing is, I'm finding that you have to have more of a universal kind of work thing going on. You should be able to. You have to do a lot of different things. What I'm getting, the students want to know, well, how do I make a video? And it's no longer like one particular business that you have to be in to do something. You have to do all these things. So they come to me, they want to know about gear, of course. And okay, then you got to know some basic fundamental electronic knowledge, like what makes a good compressor, or what makes wire tubes better in some ways than transistor stuff, you know. So it's like this overall skill set that you have to develop as a student. So it's got to be taught more. All that stuff needs to be taught more, but in a more general sense that you could branch and develop an interest in, and then go on and get focused on that particular area that you develop the interest in.
I have another question for you all. We've been trying to figure out a good time for everybody to come together again and have a tech breakfast in person. And that's something that I had a couple people were like, I can't stand doing Zooms, so please let me know when we could have tech breakfast in person. Is this something Barry and I have been talking about doing it again, where we do the Zoom the same month that we're doing an in-person thing? What do you all want to do with that? Do you want to, because we could put together one anytime. Do you want to do two in the same month, where we do one Zoom and one not Zoom? Or do you guys want to just start tapering off the Zooms and just going to meeting in person again? What are you thinking?
Really, they're really two different kind of meetings. On the one hand, the breakfasts are great because they're social and all that, and we get together and see each other, and we all love that. But the Zooms can cover, like, we're going to have Kurt, as you know, got Kurt Howe from what's the company? Tony, Kurt.
DAD.
Yeah. He's going to he wants to do a piece on their new piece, which will be out. He's telling me before the NAMM show. They're going to try a early release, and that's of interest to everybody. So we want to do those kind of things for the Zoom meeting. Something you can't do necessarily at a breakfast. You don't have the setup. So
how often did we have the live in-person breakfast? Was it like once a month or every couple of months or every 3 months?
Usually
I
it
don't
used to be
remember.
every couple of months, but we could do one every couple of months now.
Yeah, maybe alternate, you know,
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
possible
every
to.
couple of months.
in person Zoom kind of thing.
And then we're talking about doing something where we can get everybody together, doing something in partnership with a school here in LA, a recording school, where we maybe put together a one-day event where we can get everybody together and do something like that. Was that something that you guys would like to do?
What would that topic be? What would that consist
It
of?
would be a variety of topics if we're going to be there for the day. You know,
It's like a workshop for the students?
it's kind of, because here's the funny thing. We've been talking about all of us doing teaching and everything. It's so amazing. There are a lot of kids who would like to come and learn, but they want to sit down and do it. I'm not saying yes to the schools. They want to be hands-on. They want to sit in a room. They want to be able to talk to other people. They want to be like-minded. I found a place that LA Recording School has, like an auditorium that seats 350 people, call it. And so we're looking at maybe partnering up with them and doing a one-day event where we have various speakers who come in and talk and make an event. So are you guys open to that? What do you think?
Somebody, one of you guys probably would have to structure it so that here's topic A, B, C, D, E.
We're definitely going to structure it, but I'm asking you all as audio professionals, if you all, as members of Tech Breakfast, is that something that you would like to come and do and participate in? And okay, I'm getting.
Yeah, I'm in. I think passing it forward is important.
Okay. All right. So that's what we'll do. Barry and I will shoot for that because the LA recording schools are pretty interesting. I think there are definitely fewer of them, but they don't, the people who teach in the schools are teachers who in the film schools, they're learning. I'm finding that there are more and more audio junkies who are there, who are wanting to ask questions, and they don't even know what they don't know. They just know that they have a learning deficit and they need to find out what's going on with audio engineering. So when we brought this to LA Film Recording School, they were like, yeah, we would love to do something with you all, because there's this melding of like people who've been doing it for a long time and our students who are in their 20s, and they have a million questions for you guys. So I just thought we would just ask, you know, in general, if this is something you guys would like to come out and support. I think if we do it, believe it or not, there are, at any given time, we send out to 350 names. On Tech Breakfast on Facebook, there are 500, 600 people there. I think the interest is there, but I just wanted to bring it to you all directly and figure out how to do it. So
Let's do it.
okay.
Let's do it. As far as the live meeting, Matt, I think it was Mott said alternating every other time is good for me. May have one after the NAMM show, maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
a Zoom after, because the NAMM show is already social.
By the way, have any of you guys looked into the NAMM show? The price has gone way up from our point of view. We always went as an educator, but now that's sort of not the same availability as it used to be.
I definitely.
Not to be cheap about it, but you got to be a little more serious about it to pay $140 and go down there.
Well, it seems to me, I remember if you didn't have a friend that could,
Unless you know.
Yeah, 3 days.
if you
Thursday,
couldn't find
Friday,
somebody to
yeah.
give you a ticket, you could, or get you on a list, you could
Yes, that's right. You
buy one if you're a member of NARAS, I think, through NARAS for, the Recording Academy to get into NAMM was $25 or something like that. I don't know if
Is
that's
it
still
this year
around.
though?
I don't know. I haven't,
Educator days.
when is it? It's in April, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're putting out the publicity already. Suddenly there's a flood of spam and stuff.
It is April, 3 days in April, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll get you the date, and it's in Anaheim again. Let's see here.
The 12th,
And when is
April
NAMM
12th to April 15th.
There you go.
When is AES this year and where is it?
Who cares?
Don't say that. Come
Did you
on.
see
AES just happened, didn't it?
see
It was with NAB. right?
AES put out an email saying congratulating all these people for their nominations for the Grammys, and there was only one person listed in the best engineered non-classical category, sort of like the category of record for our profession, had nobody in the AES listed, like are no, and I guess John Weiner, I questioned it online, and John Weiner said, no, there's a couple more people that should have been on the list when they weren't, but the AES themselves put that list out. Like,
Tell you, man,
are the new generations of engineers not joining AES?
a category
Probably
with little or
not.
no competition is a very interesting way to get a Grammy.
Well, I'm just saying, like, there was 27 different engineers nominated in the best engineered non-classical across the nominees.
Which means
27
they did-
different people. Of those 27 people,
For 3
only
records.
one.
Thanks, Ivana. October 25th, New York City. Yes,
Okay, that's a lot.
should go. Everybody should go to that in New York.
Yeah, you went last year, didn't you?
I always go. Try to always go.
Always.
Yeah.
You're big in that group.
Well,
I mean, you're complaining about this thing with Naris. Do something about it. They have a new president. AES has a new president. Make it happen.
I didn't say anything about Naris.
I'm talking about when AES failed to completely acknowledge all the Grammy nominees. AES
Well, I think
Naris.
my point is that actually there was only a couple extra added to the list. Of the 27, I think there was only 3 or 4 were actually members of AES.
Yeah,
I just think it was interesting that in the category of record, in the awards that our industry gives out, the category of record, so few of the people of, you would think all those people would be in the AES.
I saw that as well. It came through on Society of Composers and Lyricists.
Yeah. I mean, it was AES's own release, so it just struck me as really
what
funny.
I don't understand, and this is maybe just me, with so many different styles of music, the techniques of say doing something from hip hop is not the same thing as making an acoustic album, and yet there's only one category. There are 50,000 categories in NARAS for, individual whatever in jazz and pop and hip hop and this and this and this and this. And there's only one engineering category that's.
That was when I did the committees, the NARAS committees back in the day, that was the problem we always had, was like, this is great, this is great, this is great, but they all are different disciplines, How do you apportion value to one person's contribution to a particular genre versus somebody else's? It's definitely an imperfect art.
Yeah, it's really difficult to appreciate audio engineering skills while listening to a piece of music you hate.
It's
You know,
cumulative, it's
the
cumulative
content.
art.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not the same. I mean, and I'm not bagging on somebody, but I know a couple of people. It's like, okay, you made that album in a hotel room using a UAD, box.
See you, Brian.
Microphone. That's it. It's not really an art to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
More amateur.
It's engineering, it's, pulling in a sample is not audio engineering.
Oh, okay, now wait a minute. This is going to be the problem. You're going to have young people making hit records in all kinds of different ways, in all kinds of different locations, in all kind of screwed up ways technically, and they have a hit record. So you have to be careful about that in the AES. So
keep telling them they're not engineers. They won't join the audio engineers.
Right, they're not engineers. They don't care about
exist.
Well, I apologize. That was the wrong choice of words, because there is a skill set in
signal to
doing that.
noise ratio.
All right, let me ask a question here, Barry, real quick. So if you're doing something that's totally virtual in the box using plugins, is that not engineering?
I didn't say that. I said
No, I'm
there's
just
a lot of ways.
it's a comment on the thread.
Yes.
No, that was me.
No,
I
no.
said that, and I misspoke.
Therefore, I am a composer and audio engineer, even though I don't have a mic running through a Neve. I'm still
Okay.
using my engineering experience and knowledge.
That's fine. I don't have
That's
a
all I'm
problem with
throwing
that.
out.
It's
I think the
Yeah.
greater issue is not so much whether or not it's an engineering skill. It's like what kind of engineering skill it is. That's my thing.
Okay.
Right, and as Steven said, it's in the same category of somebody who
There's
records
a different set of
a
values.
live jazz record.
Well, there's a different set of values someone has when they're working on a record that encompasses, 60 different musicians, as opposed to something where it's just everything has been programmed and you've got one vocal mic.
Maybe the AS could be reborn as an awards organization in the form of
That's
NARAS.
not
I mean,
good.
maybe they should break it out. Best live to 2-track jazz recording, best live to 2-track large ensemble, best rock band recording, best urban like whatever.
I
Like
think
maybe
there's
it needs to
enough
be
to
broken
bring
out
it
in a form of guild awards or something. I mean, the tech awards is kind of that, but it's more equipment based.
I'll tell you, a lot of people want to be in the awards business, though. I'm in Society of
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
Computer
Heaven forbid I
Science.
suggest
Trying to get-
another awards.
Yeah, yet another awards.
But
It used to be that,
delineate the talent. That's my thing.
seems to me like it used to be that the nominees for engineering and production were elected by committee as opposed
That's
to
right.
popular vote.
Not
Now, I think I remember on the first round, where there's 1,000 people in every category, engineering and production was included in there, at which point everybody elects their best friend.
even in the committee system, it tended to work that way anyway. The main submissions were always
Yeah, smaller world, same idea.
The idea was to winnow it down in a way that would make it just, but it's so subjective. It's really, there's no way. I mean, it's a way imperfect system. There's no way to do it no way to do everyone justice in the system.
I got a question. Is anybody into classical music? Are there classical engineering nominees, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think almost all the engineers that were nominated in the classical engineering category were AAS members.
Yes, and that much more widely involves acoustic.
And the immersive as well. All the immersive engineers seemed to be AAS members, or the majority of them.
Immersive, yeah, okay, because that's like big investment. You'd have to sort of be.
I don't think it's proper to try to like correlate that sort of thing. I just don't. AES is AES, NARAS, Grammys, different word show.
True.
You can't really correlate. I think the classical people are going to vote in the classical category. What I have a problem with NARAS is the fact that they've limited the amount of categories you can vote in, and a lot of other things which I won't get into. So
Well, we'd like to, after the AES show, after the Grammys, we'd like to get Maureen Droney on here and have her talk about some of those things, because I think that's just wrong. When you have, I have a client in probably every major, I have a client that does jazz, I have a client that does pop, I have a client that does world music and Christian music and this, and I can only vote in 3 categories. That's just silly. I can't even vote for something I've recorded and mixed.
Yeah, I think it was 4 categories, but then within those 4 categories, only a total of 10 subcategories or something. It was very.
No, the categories are categories. You have field. The field 1 is album of the year, record of the year, song of the year, and best new artist. Everyone votes in those. Okay, and there's 10 in each one of those in the final ballot, and then the rest of the vote is split on 3 categories. Each category, like best R&B. That's a lot of stuff. That's one category. Then you got production engineering, which I always vote in, and then another one. You have one more. So that's it. So
that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, whatever. It was more. I understand being restrictive, but it was far too restrictive this time around, because there were categories that I participated in, I wasn't allowed to vote in.
That's what I'm saying.
That last 2 ballots this year and last year were the 3 category.
And who do we voice that to? Do we voice that to Maureen as head of the P&E wing?
Well, they know about it. I thought it was going to get changed this time around, but apparently not. I mean, there's other things, like you're only allowed to enter 5 entries as a voting member. But if you want to enter more, just pay. That's wrong. That's flat wrong.
Yeah, that's just wrong because record companies have the budget to do that and individuals don't or don't
So
care
you
to.
pay if you want to enter more. So I could go on and on and on. I don't want to like rant about this because I think a lot of people feel kind of the same way.
I
I
let
have
my
some
membership lapse about 3 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
Well, that's one way of getting it off your plate, but it doesn't really rectify the problem. I think it could be worked out. I really do. I think if you get in there, I'm not saying to be super active, but voice your opinion. We'll talk to Maureen. Hopefully she can make it. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be after the Grammys, but that's next
Right.
week, so maybe March. Get her in.
So there you have a great representative. She's a engineer, producer. You know, she comes from that world, from our world, if you want, and she's at NARAS Grammys, so she'll know.
All right, well, we will talk to her. We got some stuff coming up this year, guys, so we just, stay tuned. Barry and I talk probably every other day, trying to figure out everything we're going to do and what we're not going to do and how we can get some things to you all. So we're working on it. Trust me, we will have an in-person place probably. I know we have to figure it out, but we'll go back to our usual Coral Cafe and we'll meet up again and press the flesh.
Probably, so February will be another Zoom, I think. And then
Then
maybe March will be nicer weather. I don't know. End of March.
Yeah.
Which is Academy Awards time. I don't know what date Academies are this time in March.
Well, the Grammys are this Sunday, aren't they, or next Sunday? Yeah.
Week from this Sunday.
Week Sunday.
Yeah.
So
Academy Awards are always last after the Grammys. So, yeah.
stay tuned. Thanks for coming. We're here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
We'll meet soon in person, all right? Have a good one, you all.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And thanks, Barry.
A Designs Audio is proud to introduce the Mix Factory, a concept by Tony Shepard and designed by Paul Wolf. This sexy beast will deliver a console sound in a 2RU with gain, pan, and mutes on each channel. This 16-channel summing box has all the analog you've been craving. Each group of 8 features master gain knobs, plus inserts for each group, including the 2-bus master. The Mix Factory allows you to have custom-wound Cinemac transformers in the signal path. All of this, plus linking. If you crave that heart and soul, you just found it, the Mix Factory.